Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our online worship at Christ Lutheran Vail Church. I'm Pastor Hook, and this is Josh. You're watching an online version of our worship service this morning, and we are happy to share this time with you today.
Now, don't forget to follow our Facebook page, Christ Lutheran Vail Church, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Both have tons of great content to help you with your walk with God. You can also follow us on Instagram at CLV Church for another way to stay connected during the week.
Now, if you're new to us, we'd love to connect with you better. If you'd like, text the word WELCOME to our church phone number displaying on the screen right now. And we'll send you a few texts to tell you about our church, and hopefully we'll learn more about how we can serve you.
So, Pastor, what do you think about Bitcoin?
I'm fascinated that they are just numbers on a page and yet are so valuable. I don't have any, but I know a lot of people who sure do.
Well, I do.
Oh,
and
there you go.
A lot of other people do. But like everything else in life, we can't take them with us when we depart, can we?
No, we can't. Nothing in this life goes with us except that one thing. And we'll talk about that today. But before we start, why don't you just take a minute to say hi or connect with each other in the comments, and we'll get ready to praise God.
Whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory.
Today we will learn about the importance of stewardship in our lives. Being good stewards of God's gifts can really help our lives be richer and fuller. At Christ Lutheran Vail, we celebrate everyone whose faith in Jesus grows. That is why we exist. If you have given to CLV, you are our partner in forwarding this mission, making loving disciples. We love to be the hands and feet of Jesus to share God's blessings with our community. Our goal is to show our neighbors, our loved ones, and our friends Christ's deep and unending love in this world. Whether you have given before or you would like to do so for the first time, you can invest in our mission by going to christlutheranvail.org and clicking on I Want to Give at the top right of the page. You will find ways that you can give to our community, and you'll have a chance right now to do that if you would like. We thank and praise God for all these gifts to bring Christ's light and love to our community. And now, our Pastor Hook has a message for us. He's going to talk about the role stewardship plays in making our lives richer.
So many of you drive along the road Marianne Cleveland Way. And you probably wondered, who is Marianne Cleveland? And maybe some of you know her. I've had the privilege of working with her on a couple committees. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. And I also, at one point, was curious as to why Marianne Cleveland Way was called Marianne Cleveland Way. And I was in a meeting once, many years ago, with the superintendent of schools, Cal Baker, and he explained this story. And this, I'm not sure I have it 100% correct, but this is kind of what I remember. At the time they were building Cienega High School, they were also putting in a sewer line so that they could bring sewer from our area all the way into the city of Tucson. And so they had this sewer line going through the desert into the state lands. And as it went through the desert in state lands, they were putting all these manholes in the sewer system in. And Marianne Cleveland and maybe some other people said, maybe we should put a road along the sewer easement, because the people that are going to Cienega High School, a lot of them will be coming from Rita Ranch. And as they go from Rita Ranch into Cienega High School, they'd have to go to Houghton Road, go all the way south to I-10, I-10 all the way to Colossal Cave, north on Colossal Cave, and then back to Cienega High School. And Marianne Cleveland and many others said, we really would be doing ourselves an incredible favor by connecting that neighborhood, Cienega High School, over to Houghton Road on this new sewer easement. So she went to the city of Tucson or Maricopa County, I'm not exactly sure which, and she said, we should really create a road here. Well, and I don't know if you know how roads are built in the United States today, but you don't just go to the county or the city and say, let's build a road, right? I mean, it has to be funded. Before it even gets funded, it has to be put on some sort of plan, right? The Transportation Improvement Plan. And it gets put on that plan and people think about it, and then eventually it does get funded and eventually it does get constructed. But if you look at the process and the time that it takes for that to happen, it just doesn't happen overnight. Oftentimes it takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years to build a road. Well, in 20 years, we'd all be dead. So Marianne Cleveland went in face to face and talked and pushed and prodded and did all that she could to try to get this road to be constructed. And eventually, I don't know who it was, eventually they kind of relented and they saw the value and the need and the actual safety of this road. And so they actually constructed this road. And when Mr. Baker finishes this story, and he says, and when they came to decide what the name of the road should be, they called it Marianne Cleveland Way, because Marianne Cleveland finally got her way. And it's just a wonderful story. And as I've said, she's a wonderful lady. And we are so, can you imagine how difficult it would be to live in Vail without Marianne Cleveland Way? Can you think about how difficult it would be with all those properties along Marianne Cleveland Way if they didn't have a way to access either Vail or Rita Ranch? It would be very, very, very difficult. And so we're very, very grateful that, and I don't know if she worked by herself, if she worked with a team of individuals. I actually don't know the answer to that story, but I do know that we would have a very difficult life if we did not have that road. I'm so grateful for all the people that worked on that road to make it happen, because life would be difficult. We What a great legacy, right? That group of people had to create that road. I'm grateful for people who leave a legacy. My great-grandmother was part of a team of people that created the Central Library in Glendale, Arizona. Glendale's a suburb of Phoenix. And if you go to this Central Library, it's about 57th Avenue and Glendale Road. There's a library on the north side of Glendale Road. And if you go to that library and go to the main entrance, you will find a bronze plaque. And on that bronze plaque, you will find the name of my great-grandmother, Teresa Schutt. And S-C-H-U-G-T, Teresa Schutt. And this plaque, last time, I haven't been to the library in, 20 years or so. But there was a long time, I really haven't been to my great-grandmother's grave, but maybe once. But I have shown many people my great-grandmother's name on that plaque that exists at the entrance of that library. It's really kind of a cool thing that she also left a legacy. These legacies that we leave, they're important and they mean a lot. But here's the truth. These legacies don't last forever. I'm sure that someday this library, this Central Glendale Library, will get torn down or repurposed. Even Marianne Cleveland Way might get renamed at some point in the future because some politician wants to change it to a different name. Or maybe because we won't need roads in the future. Who knows 500 years from now how people will get around and whether or not roads will actually be needed. I don't know. Maybe everyone will walk everywhere. Maybe we won't have cars anymore. Maybe cars will be a thing of the distant past. And these things, they're so meaningful and important to us today. They may not exist in the future. In fact, it's quite possible, if you think about it, that some of the things that we cling to today that we say are so important actually might be kind of a nuisance in the future. And people kind of scratch their heads and try to figure out how they can get rid of it without, violating the name of some good people that put those things into place years and years ago in the past. Legacies. We all want them, right? We all want our lives on this earth to have mattered. What if I told you that you can have a legacy, and not only can you have a legacy, but you can grow your faith at the same time that you leave a legacy? Today we're continuing to look in our series on growing our faith through stewardship. 2 weeks ago we looked at growing our faith through stewardship. Last week we looked at growing our joy through stewardship. And today we're going to talk about legacies. We're going to talk about our legacies and what to do with the gifts that God has given us, and how, if we use those gifts properly and leave a proper legacy, we can actually grow our faith even more. So we're going to take a look at the story of Jesus. He's preaching on the Sermon on the Mount. And so we're going to join him in Matthew chapter 6, and we're just going to listen to this one little thing that Jesus says. It's a big thing, but it's a short thing that Jesus says. Matthew chapter 6, beginning at verse 19. Jesus says this: "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So this is a teaching from Jesus. And as I look at this teaching, I kind of see three things. And the first is this beginning section where Jesus says, do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy. My friends, the things that we have on this earth, someday they will be gone. Because of the deterioration, the natural deterioration of everything that we see around us, someday everything will be gone. That's kind of why Elon Musk says that he is so interested about creating his SpaceX foundation. Listen to what he says. He says, we don't want to be one of those single planet species. We want to be a multi-planet species. It's been now almost half a century since we humans were last on the moon.
That's too long. We need to get back up there and have a permanent base on the moon. Again, like a big permanently occupied base on the moon. And then build a city on Mars to become a spacefaring civilization, a multi-planet species. And the Starship is the enormous stainless steel rocket that SpaceX has been building and testing in its development facility in Boca Chica, Texas. And the goal of Starship is to launch cargo and people on missions to the moon and to Mars. And the Starship is a huge Starship. It's about the size of a 15-story building, and it can carry a lot of cargo and people. And Musk said that he plans to put even more of these into orbit. He says it's been almost a century and a half since human last visited the moon, and that's too long. We need to get back up there and have a permanent base, like a big permanently occupied base, and then build a city on Mars, listen to this, to become a spacefaring civilization, a multi-planet species. So according to Musk, he feels like we need to populate Mars and the moon so that if something happens to Earth, that we will have another place to live, right? He believes perhaps that there may be some sort of catastrophic event, some sort of asteroid that might come into the Earth's atmosphere and destroy the Earth and maybe wipe out civilization that we know it. I mean, this is the theory behind the dinosaurs being wiped out, right? Researchers, this was an article actually last week, researchers believe that they have closed the case of what killed the dinosaurs, definitively linking their extinction with an asteroid that slammed into Earth 66 million years ago by finding a key piece of evidence, asteroid dust, inside of an impact crater. So they looked inside of an impact crater and they found asteroid dust, and so now they're saying that's what killed the dinosaurs. Death by asteroid rather than by a series of volcano eruptions, which is what another theory is, right? It's that the volcanoes kind of consume the dinosaurs, or some other global calamity, has been the leading hypothesis since the 1980s, when scientists found asteroid dust in the geographic layer that marks the extinction of dinosaurs. The discovery pointed to an apocalyptic picture of dust from the vaporized asteroid and rocks from impact circling the planet, blocking out the sun and bringing out mass death through a dark, sustained global winter. So in other words, according to this new theory that's put the case on it, the science is settled, right, is that a big asteroid came in, and it was such a massive asteroid that it just created all this dust that encircled planet Earth for such a long time that the sunlight couldn't get in, and all life as we know it, that needed sunlight, was extinguished. According to this one article, the circle is now finally complete. This guy who said that this is what happened. And it's the study of this International Ocean Discovery Program. You see, if we don't get hit by an asteroid, right, then life can go on, right? Or if we do get hit by an asteroid, then we can have the moon, or maybe we can have Mars, and life as we know it can go on. Except it can't, right? I mean, surely you realize this. I know that Elon Musk realizes this, but other smart scientists have looked at our universe and said that there is a finite end to it. It'll either end in one of two ways. It'll either continue to dissipate outwards to the point where it dissipates so much energy that everything turns to a very, very cold temperature and we all die because we're at a cold temperature, or it collapses in on itself like this big black hole or this big black energy of matter, and everything gets crushed and maybe starts all over again. I don't know. But I do know this. Everything that we have, everything that we see, everything that we are will not last forever. At some point, it will go away. That's what Jesus says, right? He says that moth and rust will destroy everything that we have on this earth. So all your prized possessions someday will not exist. I mean, it's not that just that, we'll be dead, but even the things that we have and everything that we've built and the culture that we've built and all of that, none of it will exist. It'll all go away. I think about my most prized possession. My most prized possession, believe it or not, are those letters and cards and things that my kids made for me that I've stored in a box. And every once in a while I come across this box and I look at it and I smile and I remember the time that they gave it to me, and They're very, very precious to me, and probably not very precious to everybody else. And you kind of want these things to last forever, but it won't. None of this stuff will. Everything that we have on this earth will eventually become, at some level, space dust. And nothing can stop that. So everything that we have, Jesus is right, everything we have that's stored on this earth, moths or rust or temperature or heat or pressure or the universe collapsing in on itself, it'll all be gone. Nothing will last from this earth. Jesus is so right. But he goes on. He says, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Jesus says that we should store our treasures in an entirely different place. He says we should store our treasures in heaven. And what are the treasures in heaven? Well, Jesus kind of gives us a little clue in Luke chapter 12. He gives us an idea of what treasures are in heaven. He says this, he says, sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out. A treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also. He says, sell your possessions and give to the poor. The treasures that Jesus is talking about are not actual physical things. The things that Jesus are talking about are giving things to the poor. And you say to yourself, well, but wait a minute. Even if I give it to the poor can't keep it forever. Not like the poor is immune from treasures. If I take my treasures and I sell them, or I take my treasures and I give them to the poor, how are they going to be prevented from keeping those treasures alive? And the answer is it's not the treasure. It's the act of giving to the poor. It's the act of giving of ourselves to another person. Those, my friends, are the treasures. Earthly treasures are a different currency than heavenly treasures. Earthly treasures are those things that we can hold and we can touch and, person, place, or thing, the things that we hold on to that have value for us, at least whatever that value is. In heavenly currency, it's totally different. It's acts that we do in helping other people, being the hands and feet of Jesus. My friend, those are the treasures that are kingdom currency, as I call them. Not heavenly, or not earthly currency, but kingdom currency. And it's entirely different. When our kids were young, because we were in the church, right? We did a lot of work with the church. Sometimes we'd ask them to help out on a particular event, and we didn't have babysitters, so we would drag them along with us, and we'd go to church and we'd do some sort of act of service, and they would be like, I don't want to get up early on Saturday. I don't want to go to the church. I don't want to do those things. And we'd say, yeah, but you're storing your treasures in heaven. And they would stop and they'd say, I don't want to store my treasures in heaven. I want to sleep in on Saturday morning. But it was good for them, right? Because even though they didn't want to necessarily do that, those acts of service did at some level put up treasures for them that are now in heaven for them, waiting for them to open up on the last day so they can look and see how exciting it'll be for them to have that bank account in heaven. It is good for them. They now have at least a small bank account, or maybe a very large bank account, of things that are being stored for them up in heaven. And it's been growing interest since they did them. The stuff that we do here on this earth for other people, the giving of ourselves, the serving other people, those are the things that go up into heaven and store and wait for us. And they gain interest. And what are these treasures in heaven? People talk about what are these things. Well, here's a couple things that people have suggested might be treasures in heaven. Helping someone cross the street, right? Giving your time to a nursing home. Teaching a child or someone more about Jesus, more about the scriptures. Here's a couple other ones. Faithfully enduring persecution. That's a treasure in heaven. Loving your enemies. Praying for your enemies. Praying for your enemies in secret. Serving the Lord and his people, being the hands and feet of Jesus. Praying. fasting, forgiving someone. And the list could go on and on. But these are just a smidgen, a tiny fraction of the things that we do, just a few examples of the rewards that are now with us in heaven. You know, it's hard because we don't see the immediate benefit of this. We don't have when I was a kid, I had a savings account back when they had passbook savings accounts. I had a checking account and I had a savings account because I had a paper route. So I would put all my money in the checking account, but then every once in a while I would take money out of the checking account and I would put it in this passbook savings account. And every time I went in, they would write or stamp in that passbook how the value of that money was growing, and then they'd put the interest in there. And it was just kind of neat to see over time how that was growing and growing. Well, the treasures in heaven, we can't really see the passbook savings account. We just know that they're up there, but we don't know how big it is or how large it is or how much is up there. And so that's hard. It's hard to give of ourselves and sacrifice of ourselves for something that's in heaven that we really can't see kind of what's going on. But we do know that it's there. If any of you follow Dave Ramsey, one of the things that he says all the time is that he says, live like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. And what he means by that is simply this, that you need to make sacrifices today as a human, right? If you live within your means and actually live below your means and save that money, if you really make those hard choices at a young age, or at any age actually, and just start living a better, more fiscally disciplined life, it will be difficult, it will be hard, and you will make incredible sacrifices. But when you live like no one else around us is living like today, right? Then in the future, when all of those sacrifices have paid off and your bank account, all your debts go away and now your bank account is increasing, you can live like nobody else tomorrow. And the same is true with Jesus and the treasures of heaven. When we give of ourselves and make those sacrifices today, we live like no one else today, but man, what will it look like in heaven when we see all those treasures that have been stored for us up in heaven? And we don't really see the passbook, but we know it's up there, and we know that Jesus is keeping it safe and sound for us. I've said this before, but I don't know if I've said it here. But when we get to heaven, one of the things that I think will happen is that we will go around to different people that we've met in our life, and we'll see the incredible plan of God and how He used our time and our talent and our giving in service to Him to bring about His incredible plan of salvation for mankind and His defeat of Satan and the good that happens because of Him. And basically heaven will be going around trying to see, or it will be revealed to us, all the great things that Jesus did in this earth and how He used us to use our hands and feet in service to Him. And because His plan is so wide and has so many tentacles, it'll take an eternity to learn this incredible plan that God put into place. And we'll learn how we were a part of that plan. And we'll learn how our life had meaning because we were wrapped up into Jesus' plan. So even though the things of this earth may not be around billions of years from now, the treasure stored up in heaven will be, because moth and rust don't destroy them. And where the treasures are up in heaven. And then Jesus goes on. He has one more sentence, and it's this. He says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be. You see, this is what happens when we start using our lives to be the hands and feet of God. When we start sacrificing our time and our talent and our treasures for the sake of the kingdom, when we do that, according to Jesus, that starts to transform our life. We talked last week about this link between sacrifice and love. That the more you sacrifice, the more you love. That there's this link between sacrifice and love. Well, Jesus takes this one step further and says, when you sacrifice, it's not only love, but your heart then starts to turn towards the thing that you're sacrificing for. It turns slowly and gradually. And as that happens, your faith begins to grow. You begin to see all the things that Jesus did and all the plans that he has, and you begin to see in the big picture all the things that Jesus is doing that's stored up for you in heaven, and your faith begins to grow. This is what many people have talked about over time, is that if you simply put your eyes and see the world as Jesus sees the world and sees his plan as he sees his plan, you begin to, like the fog begins to lift, and you can see the incredible things that God is doing in this world and begin to get a taste and to see of the treasures that there will be awaiting for us in heaven. One hymn writer wrote it this way. He said, "Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of this earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace." Here's the cool thing. Once your heart is focused on God, it becomes less and less about the things of this earth and becomes more and more about the things of heaven. And it changes our heart so that we don't do these things for our own personal benefit so that we can live a more comfortable life on this earth or have more things on this earth. No, our heart changes to see that the thing that really lasts are the treasures in heaven. And we have a change of mindset to kind of change from the things of this earth to the things of heaven. And then when we get to heaven, we'll be able to see how God's plan was fulfilled. And we'll begin to open up those treasures in heaven. I don't know if you read about this, but in 1991, there was this guy that went to a flea market and he came across this picture with the frame, right? And he thought the frame was kind of cool, and so he bought it and he kind of put it in his garage and he showed it to friends. And one time his friend started looking at it and said, "Wait a minute, you should have this investigated. This looks like it might be something of interest to somebody somewhere." So he took it to a couple dealers and a couple places, and it turned out that hidden in this frame, right, was an original copy of the Declaration of Independence. An original copy of the Declaration of Independence. And it turned out that they didn't know that this copy existed, and it went for a lot of money at auction. It had incredible value, right? This happens all the time. There was a guy who had found a stone in a field, and he thought it kind of looked interesting. It was in 1990, a Brazilian farmer. He stooped down and he'd get the stone, and it caught his eye. He scooped it up, and he didn't realize that what he had just picked up was what's known now today as the Musaeff red diamond. It is the rarest of diamond. It's a red diamond, which doesn't exist in nature a lot of times. It's now been carved and shown. It's a 13.9 carat diamond. It was when he found it, it was 13.9 carats, but after it was formed and carved and shaped into a diamond, it was 5.11 carats. It's now known as the Musaeff red diamond, and collectors have been purchasing it as one of the most valuable diamonds that there is. He found it out in the field, right? When we get to heaven, we will begin to see all the treasures that God has for us. And we will find treasures that we didn't even know we had. Because every time that we store a treasure, God puts interest on that treasure. And when we get to heaven, we will find all the things that he did to supplement the treasures that we put into heaven. And we will be rich beyond compare. But we're not rich because of the works that we did. And here's the interesting thing. Everything that we do on this earth, it is worthless. It truly is. But everything that Jesus did for us is of infinite value. And when we get to heaven, we'll find out the infinite value that Jesus has for us in heaven. And that will be a really, really great thing. You know, a lot of the things that we have in this earth everything in this earth is going to go away. But the treasures that we have waiting for us in heaven will never go away. And when we can shift our life and our mindset to understand that God has brought us into his kingdom, and there's nothing that we can do that it can ever separate us from his love, and all the treasures of the kingdom are ours, and he's holding on to them, and he's adding value to them and adding interest to them. It's just the coolest thing. It helps us pull back from the things of this earth and begin to see the things that really matter, the heavenly things that Jesus has stored for us. And when we can do that, it immensely grows our faith. Our faith gets stronger and deeper and richer, and we see things in a different way. And that is really truly the blessings of the kingdom of heaven. And all the treasures that we have on this earth, we, through the power of the Holy Spirit, begin to see how they're nothing compared to the treasures that God has for us in heaven. May God continue to protect and hold on to those treasures until we see them face to face. In His name, amen. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face smile upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Amen. I have a few announcements. First of all, on Ash Wednesday, which is March 2nd, you are welcome to come to church at 9 o'clock in the morning or at 7 o'clock in the evening. I will be putting ashes on people. We'll have an Ash Wednesday service and for both the morning and the afternoon. So that'll be kind of cool. If you'd like to get ashes, you're more than welcome to join that. The other thing that's interesting is that leading up to Ash Wednesday, there are many, many cultures around the world that do this thing called Shrove Tuesday or Fat Tuesday. And because many cultures get rid of fat during Lent, as one of the things that they're giving up for Lent, many cultures would go and get rid of all the fat and cook it up in a tasty meal. This is also known as Mardi Gras in New Orleans, but we're not doing Mardi Gras. But we are going to have what we're calling a pancake breakfast. And so if you'd like to come and have pancakes, you could do that on Tuesday, March 1st in the morning. And you could have a pancake breakfast on Tuesday morning to kind of prepare for Lent, and then we'll get into Lent. And so those are the announcements that I have for also, I guess one other announcement, and that is that the in-person service today, after both services, we are going to have coffee and bagels, and all the money that we collect for today is going to go to an organization to help the Kentucky tornado group, because there was that major tornado that went through Kentucky, and we're going to help them out. So we're having that. If you'd like to help donate to that Kentucky tornado group and store some treasures in heaven, you could send some money in and put Kentucky tornado, and we'll make sure it gets to the tornado rescue effort. And that's all the announcements I have. So I pray that you have a great week, and may God bless you, and we will see you again next week. Go in peace and serve the Lord with joy. Thanks be to God.